What's up everybody, this is Brenton with Forza Tuning and Performance, and today the video is going to be more about this demon behind me. We are basically done with the car as far as assembly and everything, and we're to the tuning stage of it. So I'm going to just give you a brief little synopsis of what we did with the car, and then this video is going to be more pertained to tuning specific. So I'm going to show you all, I'm going to kind of take you all along as I tune the car and kind of what goes into that, tuning in general, and it's specifically on the Hellcat Demon platforms. This is a Stage 4R car. We featured in a couple maybe of our other previous videos. So this car has started off as our standard Stage 4R package, which is Stage 1 is brisk racing spark plugs, lower temperature thermostat, a security bypass cable like all the 2018 Hellcat platforms have, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that more specifically later when we get to tuning. The PCM is modified, it has an ATI overdrive dampener pulley on it. We pinned the crankshaft like always. The car has a full custom exhaust made by American Racing Header specifically for us for this vehicle. Because the power level of this car, this is a more custom system. This guy's probably going to build on this in the future. So this has 2 3/8 primaries on the header tubes. It goes to a 3.5 down to 3-inch exhaust down the line. So a little bit different than normal. It also has the supercharger modification program that we do here, which is high-speed bearings, a billet hub, porting, polishing, But this blower case was also plumbed for nitrous hardlines, and we showed a little bit about that in the previous video, showed you all pictures of what it looks like with the blower disassembled. So this car is going to be running spray bars in the blower for nitrous on top of the Stage 4R package. Okay, we're gonna have to be very, very careful when we tune this. The Demon and Red Eye engine is very durable, but nitrous can be hard on a vehicle if the tune is not spot on. And I'm gonna talk about some specific things as far as tuning with nitrous that you have to do. And I'm gonna show you some pictures on the vehicle, just so you have a better understanding of it. And nitrous is not something that we recommend right off the get-go, okay? I think there's better ways to get power that are probably more reliable, but in some scenarios it's fine, and this being one of them. So we'll talk more specifically about that. Okay, so I've basically got a bass tune loaded in the car right now. I still have to finish the transmission stuff, been super busy, but I'm going to be showing you all some different things as far as the tune of the car with the nitrous. I do a large majority of the tuning on the street. I feel like that's the most accurate way to get drivability, just the stuff of regularly driving the car spot on, because there's a dyno does a really good job of duplicating riding on the street, but there's nothing that can replace actually driving the car with a computer in it. I'll do a large portion of that, and then when I feel like the street tuning is 100% and the car drives like stock and there's no issues at all, then I will do some mild partial hits on the street. But on a car of this power level, especially when we get to spraying nitrous, I'm not going to take a customer's car, ain't even risk anything. It's going to be safely strapped down to our dyno behind us. We get asked a lot of questions, what kind of dyno do we like, or what kind of dyno do we use, and then differences between dynos. I'm actually going to probably do a video on this here relatively soon, but for the sake of this, we're strapping this demon down. I like Mustang dyno. It's not the only good dyno, but it's the one that I like. I really like this style right here. This has got a very short roller bed. I've had a few different styles. I've had a couple dyno jets, one with the old school with a big 48-inch drum where the car's 4 feet in the air. I had also had like a 424 LC squared, and that's got the 24-inch rollers on it by Dyno Jet. And on my last shop, I had that recessed into the ground, so it sat flush, and it does look really, really good. The only problem is, as you can see right now, here I have a little bit of access to get underneath the car to strap it down. It's not such a pain in the ass, but imagine if this was totally down on the ground, especially when you had a low car. It's really, really hard to get underneath there to get the car strapped down. I like this, above the ground, but this specific one with the short roller bed, it's not so high where I have to have a dedicated drive-on rack in front of the dyno to get the car up on a drive-on rack, raise the car up high enough to back it onto the dyno. With this style, with the shorter roller beds, we can actually put some ramps out that we can easily remove and to move cars on and off the dyno. So this dyno takes up a much smaller footprint in the shop. So for any of you all that are looking to optimize your shop space, this would be my personal, this would be my preference. So by the time the car gets on the dyno, a lot of the tuning is actually done. We got the car strapped down, talked a little bit about the dyno, and then what we did on all the Hellcat platforms, we pull the 2 anti-lock brake fuses up at the front. That keeps the traction control happy. The car gets real confused with the back wheel spinning and then the front wheel's not. So we just did that and then topped off the reservoir for the supercharger coolant. And now we're gonna go inside the car. The wide open throttle portion of tuning is actually one of the easier and kind of, straightforward at that point. There's not a whole lot of stuff that has to be done. When you get to the wide open throttle portion, you have fueling, you have timing, so spark, ignition, and you're basically just manipulating, for the most part, those two. You can get into some cam timing, depending on the engine, but it's basically fuel and spark. So as usual, we're working in the middle of the night here. So what I'm doing is trying to get some food delivered from DoorDash, since it will be closed. So tuning is very important for eating. You can't tune on an empty stomach, you might f something up. Every engine is gonna have a sweet spot. They're gonna have an amount of fuel that they're happy at. It's gonna be safe. It's going to be enough fuel to ward off detonation, but not be too much fuel. So what we're using is VP MS109 right now. And so the car is pretty low on gas, and one thing that's super important on any of these cars is you do not want the fuel pump basket or the fuel hanger basket to run dry. It will blow the engine up, almost guaranteed. So what I mean by that is pretty much all the fuel hangers, it's like a plastic or a billet hanger, and it's basically like a little, a bucket that the fuel pump or fuel pumps in this scenario sit inside. And so even if the gas is low in the tank, it pulls the fuel from the tank and fills it in the bucket, so the pumps are always submerged. So when you get into wide open throttle driving, or you're at the track and you leave the line and all the, the G-forces push the gas to the back of the tank, what can happen is once the engine consumes all the gas that's in the bucket, if there's not adequate fuel level, then what it'll do is suck air, so the engine runs lean. Under boost and wide open throttle, that is very bad. So we don't have the inertia to deal with here with the track, but if we were mid-pull and the basket went dry, the engine would run lean, and you can very easily blow an engine up. So I always suggest, even at the track, to always run them on at least a half a tank of gas. I know everybody doesn't want the car to weigh any more than it has to, but trust me, the little bit amount of weight is better than a blown up engine. We just calibrated the dyno. We set the parasitic loss on the dyno, and then we also did a roll speed test and synced the RPM in 5th gear, which is the gear that we'll be doing the pull in. So now it's time to make some pulls. On a supercharged car like this with a fixed pulley setup, it's not like a turbo car where we're constantly adjusting boost levels and we're seeing, okay, is the car happier with more boost and less timing, or more timing and less boost? Okay, so we've just got, boost is static. It is what it is here. And obviously we've tuned a ton of these cars, so I pretty much know exactly where they're happy at. These are a little bit more in depth because they have a lot of torque management stuff going on. So I'm not gonna get crazy, in depth into all that. And then we have the nitrous stuff. Okay, so the nitrous stuff is pretty much, since the nitrous system is now introducing nitrous oxide and additional fuel into the car, what we're gonna have to do is get the car fully tuned out without nitrous, okay? And then we're gonna have to decide how much nitrous we're gonna spray to the car. So we're gonna start very, very small and conservative. Once you start spraying nitrous, once you get to a certain point, you're gonna have to pull ignition timing out to compensate for the extra nitrous to keep the engine safe. And as far as fueling goes, I like to get the fueling 100% spot on, where there's almost no air or fuel trim, compensation whatsoever. And then what we're gonna have to do is size the nitrous and the fuel pills accordingly, okay? We're gonna fine tune that based off AFR readings and fuel trim readings and get a happy medium of where exactly this car's happy at. So we'll get the car totally tuned out and then we'll do nitrous specific tuning. We're having a little bit of issues with the dyno, so we've already contacted Mustang and they're gonna log in remotely and get it lined out tomorrow. So we didn't get as much of the actual dyno stuff. You know, we gotta edit this video and get it out for y'all tomorrow morning, so we're obviously super crunched on time. So we'll turn it into another video, more really in depth about the tuning. But something I do wanna talk about right now that, you know, we don't have to have dyno pulls for it, is the engine management system and the logic on the Hellcat vehicles, okay? I get a lot of calls from not the reputable tuners, you know, so the guys that, you know, around the country that are used to tuning these cars, they understand how they work. These are more or less the smaller shops maybe, or shops that are more used to like GM platforms or the older Dodge stuff that's all speed density. When they came out with the Hellcat, they all run on what's called an artificial neural network. The engine management is very sophisticated. So the cars run in closed loop all the time. So for any of y'all that don't know what closed loop is a term to reference fuel control. So what it is when you start a car, any car, and it's cold, the car is running what's called open loop. And what that means is the oxygen sensors are in a process of heating up, so they're not doing anything. Basically, the fuel strategy for the car is just running off a pre-programmed calibration, okay? And so as soon as the car heats up, it goes into what's closed loop, okay? What that means is now the O2 sensors are hot, they're doing their job, and they're monitoring air-fuel ratio. So it can tell the computer, hey, we're a little bit too lean, we're a little bit too rich, and the computer can compensate, okay? Those are called fuel trims, long and short fuel trims. Most cars, when you go to wide open throttle, they go into open loop. And what that means is there's no fuel control, okay? So whatever the car is tuned at, either by the manufacturer or by your tuner, that's the air-fuel ratio that the car is gonna run at. The computer can't change it, okay? There are no fuel trims that come into play. So if you're tuning, let's say a C6 Corvette, and you want 12-to-1 air fuel at the tailpipe, then you command 12-to-1 in the tune, and then you put a wideband in the tailpipe, and you do a pull and see what it does. So your air fuel might be at 13-to-1, okay? So it's like, hey, I'm too lean, I need to add some fuel to basically, you're gonna try to match the air fuel at your wideband with what you're commanding in the tune, okay? So a Hellcat and a Trackhawk, a Demon, any of these newer Dodges with an artificial neural network, what they are, they can run in closed loop at wide open throttle, okay? So they run factory wideband O2 sensors, and they are able to change instantaneous on a millisecond, you know, time frame. So if you command 12-to-1 air fuel in a Hellcat and you test it at the tailpipe, the car is going to be 12-to-1, okay? And it's because the computer can compensate with fuel trims to make what you're commanded what it is. Now, this is where some people get confused, okay? You'll have some guys that are used to tuning, you know, different vehicles, and they'll do a pulley change or they'll make a modification on the car, and they put their wideband in the tailpipe, and they're reading what the wideband is saying, and they are assuming that the car is tuned or doesn't need to be tuned because the wideband is reading the correct air-fuel ratio, okay? But the important thing to keep in mind on these vehicles is you have to look at the fuel correction factors, the long and short-term fuel trims. So a Hellcat might be, you might command 12-to-1, and if you looked at a wideband in the tailpipe, it might say 12-to-1, but the computer could be compensating 20% or 30% to get it to that 12-to-1. So the car really isn't tuned. And when you get up in a range where you hit that limit where the computer can no longer compensate, at that point it's going to go lean very, very quickly, okay? Or you could have a scenario where some guys are running leaded race gas, okay? So the lead in the race gas will tear up the O2 sensors. So in a Hellcat, those are crucial for maintaining proper fuel control. So again, that leads us to a whole nother topic. You have to run non-leaded race gas in these things, or you can take a chance on damaging the O2 sensors and having a fueling issue. So what you do on a Hellcat is basically you command what you want at wide open throttle, and you know it's going to be there. So you have to tune the computer system to where the correction factor to keep it to that air fuel is as close to zero as possible. So then the computer has the full capability to adjust up and down to maintain that target air fuel. Okay guys, hope you like this video. You know, we got some super cool stuff coming. We'll be bringing it to you. We're flying out to California. We're gonna be going to San Diego, out to Speed Society's headquarters. We are going to be bringing you all daily uploads. We're gonna be building a car for them. That's their next giveaway car. Now, I don't wanna tell you what it is. I want them to release the information, but it's gonna be pretty cool. So I'm gonna actually be building the car myself, and we're gonna be bringing you all daily updates, step by step of the build process. We're gonna show you what Speed Society looks like. Their headquarters is amazing place. They're super cool guys. We've known them for a long time. So it's gonna be an awesome time. We're gonna show you a bunch of stuff during the build process, afterwards, hanging out, and the whole 9 yards. So y'all are gonna get, you know, daily uploads of a lot of cool stuff. So if you wanna see it, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so as soon as we upload them, you get to see it. Thanks guys.